Hey there, estate planning attorney Paul Rabalais here, and in this video, we're going to talk about the relationship that 401k beneficiaries have with last will and testament beneficiaries. I'm going to jump right in. I've seen this problem a number of times over the years. Let's say, for example, somebody writes a will, and in their will, it provides, when I pass away, I leave my 401k account balance to Deborah. But on their 401k beneficiary designation form, they didn't designate Deborah as a beneficiary, or they left the beneficiary designation blank on their 401k form, or it was done years ago and maybe they named someone or some people other than Deborah as the beneficiaries of their 401k. Well, when that account owner later passes away, let's say years ago, having designated Ben as the 401k beneficiary, and then subsequent to that wrote a will and said, I leave my 401k to Deborah, and then that account owner dies, who gets the money, Ben or Deborah? Well, I can tell you, 100% of the time, Ben is going to get 100% of the money because Ben was on the designated beneficiary form and that controls. So let's take a look at both of those and then see how they are sometimes related. 401k, all right, thanks to Schwab for making it easy. They put their 401k beneficiary designation form online as a PDF, enables me to print it off and show it to you. So you'll see right here where it says 401k beneficiary designation form. This is it right here, 7 pages long. And on that page, you fill out your name and your 401k account information, and then you start listing who you want to name as beneficiaries. You can list primary beneficiaries, you can list contingent beneficiaries. On any 401k beneficiary designation form, there are going to be some limitations. So for example, let's say you have a minor or one or more minors as your beneficiaries. It is a mess when somebody passes away and one or more of their beneficiaries are minors. Minors can't inherit, they can't sign the paperwork to inherit. Judges, lawyers, courts all have to be involved on that minor's behalf. It's a mess. Now, you can designate a trust for a minor as a beneficiary of your 401k, but on the beneficiary designation form, you can't create that trust or state the provisions of that trust. You'll have to do that outside of all of this, but at least you can designate a trust, you can name a trust, but you can't create the trust within the confines of that beneficiary designation form. Also, on 401k beneficiary designation forms, you can't leave a specific dollar amount to somebody. You can't say, wow, man, I'm so happy I have $800,000 in my 401k. Here's what I want to do. I want to make sure that so-and-so gets $100,000. Can't do that on a 401k form. Everything has to be in percentages, so that's another limitation. Probably the biggest limitation is some people are fine just leaving their 401k to their spouse, and you know what? They say their spouse can do whatever they want to with it when they get it. But other people say, yeah, I'd like my 401k to go to my spouse, but perhaps if my spouse remarries, or perhaps when my spouse dies, I want to be able to control where the remainder of that account goes when my spouse dies. I don't want, bluntly, my spouse to get married and then my spouse will leave what was my 401k account to my spouse's next spouse. Or maybe some people think, I don't want to leave my big 401k account balance, that's the largest financial asset I have, to my spouse, because my spouse might get influenced, unduly or not, in the future and may be put into a position where my spouse leaves that 401k balance to people who they really should not leave it to. So again, solving that problem typically requires that a trust be named as a beneficiary of a 401k. Oftentimes that trust is for the benefit of the spouse, but then when the spouse dies, because a trust was used as a beneficiary, the trust often provides that when that surviving spouse later dies, assets revert back to the beneficiaries that the original 401k account owner listed or had. So, but you can't just on a beneficiary designation form, you can name your spouse, they get it. You can name a trust for your spouse, but you can't create the terms of that trust on your 401k beneficiary designation form. So there are some limitations there, but the key point to remember is if there's conflict between what's on the beneficiary designation form and what's in the will, as to that 401k account balance, the beneficiary designation controls. Okay, let's move over to the will beneficiaries, where by creating a will, yes, you can have much more control and much more flexibility over how you leave things behind. You can leave dollar amounts. It doesn't have to be in percentages. You can create trusts inside your will so that if you want to leave $100,000 to your grandson, but you want to make sure that it's used for his education, and then after that he gets a third of what's left at 25, one half of what's left at 30, the rest at 35. You can do all of that by creating testamentary trusts in your will, and you can set up a leaving your estate or a portion of your estate to your spouse in a way so that, pick what you want to do. When your spouse later dies, it reverts back to the beneficiaries you've selected. If your spouse remarries, then your spouse's rights to the account stop and it goes back to your beneficiaries. Just a lot more flexibility on what you can do in a will when you leave things to your spouse. Now, there is a third option, but you have to be really careful about it, where the two are kind of merged. Some people on their 401k beneficiary designation form, they'll name their estate as the beneficiary of their 401k. May make sense, at least initially may sound like it makes sense, because when you leave your 401k to your estate, then the terms of your will control how that 401k account is dispersed, because you named your estate as the beneficiary of your 401k and your will controls who gets your estate. However, with 401ks, in particular traditional 401ks, there are a number of income tax consequences that apply when you name your estate as the beneficiary of your 401k, and really none of those income tax consequences are good. By naming your estate as a beneficiary of your 401k account, income tax will have to be paid likely much quicker and at much higher rates than you would if you named individuals as beneficiaries of your 401k, or trusts that meet certain requirements that allow the income tax to be deferred over a longer period of time. So be careful if you're naming your estate as the beneficiary of your 401k. So hope that helps you understand a little bit about the relationship between 401k beneficiaries and will beneficiaries. Can't cover it all in here, but should give you an idea of making you aware of some of the issues that you need to be aware of. Make sure you like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, share. We'll see you next time.